Hey everyone, this is David. Welcome back behind the velvet rope. Let's just get right into it today because we are joined by the one, the only Ray Parker Jr.
Good to be here. How's it going?
What is going on? Bugaboo is in the house. How are you?
Yeah, Bugaboo is here. Happy Thanksgiving, and it's Thanksgiving Eve,
Happy
whichever way you
Thanksgiving.
watch it. And by the way,
I
nobody knows in my family about this show. Nobody I know knows. I mean, I kept it 100% quiet. My wife doesn't know, and my kids don't know.
wow. I mean, normally, you tell the wife, you tell the kids, you get to tell one or two
Exactly.
people. Wow,
Yeah.
you didn't. How come you kept it a total secret from everyone?
Well, they on the thing they say they stressed a few people as possible. So I just said, well, if I don't tell anybody, then I can't. Won't be me.
That is true. I mean, listen, you've been in the music business, for almost, over 6 decades. You have a career that people could only dream of. Like, what drew you to the Masked Singer?
Well, last year somebody thought I was Bobby Brown. It was Bobby Brown in the costume, and they picked me and they put my head on top of the costume. And I got so many phone calls from that, right? I didn't really know that much about it, but I got so many phone calls. And I said, well, that looks like a fun show. Maybe I should be on there for real. Now, I never called anybody or really thought more about it. It was just a passing thought in my mind. And sure enough, a year later, they called me to come on the show. So I thought it was really exciting.
And was it as fun as you expected?
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot harder than I did expect. It was a lot hotter than I expected. The costume was a lot more difficult to get in and out of, to see out of. The temperature in the costume was outrageous. And by the time they put me on stage with the full stage lights and audience, forget it. I mean, I wasn't wondering if I was going to finish the song or just pass out right then and there. And I did see one episode where the artist passed out, and I was like, wow, that could be me from this heat exhaustion and the other stuff. So it's not for the faint of heart. You should be in good physical shape when you do this show.
So, do you think singers have like an advantage then, or no? Like, once you could be singing your whole life, once you put on that costume, it's kind of an
Oh
even
yeah,
playing
once you put
field.
on that costume, all bets are off. It has nothing to do with how great your voice is or how much control you have. Now it's a physical thing. It's like running track or playing football or something.
Did you learn anything about yourself as a performer, as a singer, from this show?
Well, that's the first time I ever really been on stage in front of a lot of people and nobody knew who I was. So I like the idea that you can perform just randomly like that. And I was singing a song that I wasn't really familiar with. It wasn't my song, with my lyrics that I believe. So I couldn't really do it my style, which I thought was a nice departure. It does, that's nice to do something different and something new.
It's nice to do something different and something new. Well, listen, you have worked with and written songs for all the greats. I mean, listen, you've worked with Gladys Knight, Latoya Jackson, Shaka Khan. They've all been on The Masked Singer.
Yeah, yeah.
What about, like, listen, you've also worked with like Stevie Wonder, Tina Turner, Diana Ross. Like, out of those three, Diana, Tina, and Stevie, like, who do you think would be just a great candidate to be on this show and maybe follow in your
Well, I
footsteps?
think, of course, I think Stevie Wonder would be wonderful to be on. I wonder, he has such a recognizable voice. I wonder would they recognize him voice if he was singing, you know, a Rolling Stone song or something, or a blues song. It'd be something different.
That is, I mean, he does have such a recognizable voice, but to see him sing against type, like maybe he could fool the judge. Listen, these judges are good. Like, I don't know how they figure any of it out, but sometimes they
Yeah,
do, and often
yeah,
they do.
they get pretty close pretty early on, and you'd be like, oh, really? How's he doing that? How they gonna get there? So it's pretty interesting.
It is. It's like they're like Rolodex for pop culture knowledge is unrivaled. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
Speaking of Latoya Jackson, I remember that CD, that first album of hers. What is it like working with Latoya? I'm such a fan of hers.
Well, good gracious, that was only 50 years ago.
Yeah,
if I
yes, it
saw her now,
was.
if I saw her now or she saw me now, we probably wouldn't recognize each other. I mean, it was really that's back in the 70s,
It was
before my career, actually.
before your career. Well, listen, speaking of your career, I mean, you had such an epic career with radio and then, on your own. Really, you broke out during the 80s. Like, do you define your career like the same way I do in my head? I mean, I made up my own backstory. Like, is it really like pre Ghostbusters and then after Ghostbusters? I mean, that song is on every top of, like, you look at every catchiest songs of all time, best songs of the 80s. Like
Yeah.
there's not one chart that, you know, best songs of all times that Ghostbusters doesn't appear on.
Well, believe it or not, I probably look at it the same way you do because that's what defines it. I mean, it's like life before Ghostbusters and life after Ghostbusters, and life after Ghostbusters. Some people forgot I even played the guitar. I mean, it's like it's crazy. But that one particular song, for some reason, I guess I was having a really really good day. It just caught the whole world. And it's the saying of who you're gonna call. Or I ain't afraid of no ghosts, or Bustin' makes me feel good. You can say that anywhere in the world, and everybody knows what you're talking about 40 years later. It's just the most amazing thing I could ever imagine.
It is. I mean, exactly. Like, what do you think it is about these lyrics, and how does one come up with these lyrics? I mean, Bustin' makes me feel good. I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Like, where does this come from, Ray?
Well, I'm going to say it comes from God because I wish I could tell you I was some genius who sat down with a piece of paper and really wrote it down and went going. But I really just threw those lyrics together at the last minute in a hurry. And so it wasn't
Wow.
that much thought to it. And, almost like a kid who does his homework at the last minute Sunday night. You had all weekend to do it, but Sunday night you're going to rush and get it done. And it's an amazing thing about music. Sometimes I spend a year or spend months and months working on the perfect song that I think sounds perfect, and then you just throw this one together like real quick, do everything really really fast, and the world says that's it. He's a genius, and you'd be like, I am. So it's like it's a really strange thing.
Well, I'm sure people are going to be singing it on The Masked Singer behind those masks for many seasons to come.
Yeah,
What does go through your mind though when you get a call like from the producers and they say, "Listen, there's this movie. It's going to involve green slime. It's going to star Sigourney Weaver, Dan Aykroyd. They're going to be chasing ghosts in the modern day setting." Like, what goes through your mind when you get called to do this
yeah.
to write this?
Well, that in particular was more of they didn't name all the people in it. They just said, "Let us show you a rough draft for the film." And here's where we want the music to go. And the hard part is Ivan Reitman said he wanted the word Ghostbusters in the song. And then I said, no wonder they call a bunch of famous people to write this song and nobody could write it because that's a really terrible word to try and sing. I mean, if you try and sing it, it comes out terribly. So there was a part of the film where they had the phone number underneath the Ghostbuster characters, and that is what I related to out of the entire film. And I thought, well, the way to do this is I'm never going to say the words Ghostbusters. I'm just going to say, who you going to call, right? Like answer and response. You got a problem. Who do you call? Call the Ghostbusters. And I always thought of them as the military characters anyway, with the backpacks on. So I made the music very military sounding.
Wow. See, I'm like getting inspired, and I think this is brilliant all over again. Did you
Yeah.
go through, before we move on, did you go through like, that's brilliant. Did you go through like multiple incarnations, like where you submitted it and they're like, I don't know, let's find
Oh,
two?
definitely.